And we are getting ready for your next panel. And this one is human-centered design in the UCC world. Very excited about this. And quick thanks to Audio-Technica for making this panel possible. So going to bring on our guests now. So we have Dan Pelletier and Kelly Perkins. How's it going, you guys?
Great.
Yay,
Awesome.
It's going wonderful. How
Awesome,
about you?
Awesome. Doing well. Love a live event. This has been really fun. So
Yeah.
first of all, I wanted you both to just take a couple minutes, introduce yourself, and explain a little bit about what you do. Dan, do you want to go first?
Certainly. Dan Pelletier. I'm the Senior Applications Engineer at Audio-Technica. I've been at Audio-Technica for 12 years now. Just had my 12-year anniversary about a week ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, yay. It's I feel like it's a feat. Basically what I do is I assist integrators and consultants, and I assist them with design, which is kind of interesting that we're talking about a human-centric approach.
Right.
That's basically what I do day in and day out. And that's kind of the little bit about me.
Awesome. Kelly, what about you?
I am Kelly Perkins. I am the marketing director for the Farm AV. We are a rep firm that also offers professional services, particularly QSYS programming, commissioning, and support services. I've been there for about 1.5 years, so not quite a dozen years yet.
So first of all, when we talk about human-centered design, I wanted to ask what that meant to both of you, because I know that that brings up a lot of questions of okay, what does that mean, and what does that mean in this space specifically? So Dan, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, so I think as AV manufacturers and AV integrators, we tend to go with what we know, and in a lot of ways, we know a good amount of the tech, right? So I think that in a way we can get locked into that mindset and really think about the tech and not necessarily about the customer that we're serving. So it's almost like renewing your mind and getting a little bit out of that repetition of thinking about just the hardware and thinking actually about what that customer needs. In a lot of ways, I think that we could be, and this is, I think, human nature, in that we tend to copy paste things, and we tend to apply a certain mindset to a wide variety of things. So sometimes, we might get, again, locked into that mindset when we're talking to a specific customer and think maybe solely about the solution that we have in mind and not necessarily the solution that they need. So that's what the human-centric approach means. It's basically removing hardware as a barrier to any natural conversation. And by natural conversation, I mean even, within a meeting space, or as you're sending audio to in a meeting space to the far end. That's what the human-centric approach means to me.
Kelly, what about you?
I definitely agree with you, Dan. I think, to me, a human-centric approach is really focusing on that person that's actually using the technology. I was just having a conversation yesterday with a friend who moved into a 55 plus community that's all decked out with the latest and greatest technology throughout, but the pool speakers don't work. And he's like, why don't the pool speakers work? And the guy, the property manager guy's like, nobody knows how to turn them on. So it's you can spend all this money and have all this great technology, but if nobody knows how to use it, or if it's unfunctional for the space that it's in, then then it's moot. Then it doesn't do anything, and it doesn't really serve the purpose of, in the end, helping the user communicate or do what they're trying to do. So that would
the 55 plus community is actually a good example, because in a conference room, chances are people who are using that conference room, they don't look at this technology every single day like all of us do.
Right.
Like, they would just love to come in and they don't have to do a thing. The room just is doing what it needs to do and they don't have to press too many buttons. So how can manufacturers, integrators, end users, how can we collaborate to ensure that this human-centric approach happens when it comes to design? That's a big question. Sorry.
No, it's a good one. Collaborating, I'd say, is you first have to be a good listener.
Right.
In a way, we're expected to be, the authority for a solution, an ultimate solution for our customer. So, at least as we do things here at Audio Technica, we talk to a lot of dealers, we talk to a lot of consultants, we talk to a lot of end users, and we really try to get them as the voice of the customer and try to develop products around that. So, I guess shameless plug. We tried to do that with our ceiling array, with our AT&D 1061 DAN ceiling array microphone, where we really listened to what customers wanted. We wanted to find out how we can provide them with a good balance of flexibility and simplicity. Very often, those are against each other. So if you have a system that's too flexible, it could become very complicated. But in a way, the idea is we lean on integrators to take this complexity, the complexity of really any product, and simplify it for the end user, because we really don't expect them to really to have to interact. We would really prefer it if there's minimal interaction, kind of going back to that first question, and that we don't want any barriers to natural discussion. So if somebody can just go into a room and press call, for Teams or Zoom or Meet or any of the other ones that I'm not mentioning, to simplify that user experience. And I think you can collaborate by really listening to what your end user is saying, to really listening to what the dealer is saying, and then balancing that. I from the previous panel with Samantha Potter, really balancing that out and creating a simple solution for your customer.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Kelly, what do you think?
I would just add to that, it is easy to kind of, you had mentioned before, Dan, like falling into copy and paste type stuff. But I think at the end of the day, just to create, a true user, human-centric design, I think we need, to an extent, be very brand agnostic, and that system needs to be able to function and flow together seamlessly now, but also into the future. Right? Things change so rapidly. All of the rooms and the technology that was installed during the pandemic, people realize that, the workplace has shifted, right? So what worked before the pandemic, what worked during the pandemic, what worked after the pandemic, it's trying to, keep everything functioning and future-proof, but also keep it brand agnostic, where you don't necessarily see the technology in the rooms either. Although
Right.
I don't entirely know how you have a brand identity with a manufacturer if you don't have the branding on it. But
just solving the unsolvable problems, classic AV.
Right.
Another big part of human-centric and user-centric design is like inclusivity and meeting equity and all of these things, like ensuring that people can join the meeting no matter where that they are from, and the meeting is easy and they can figure it out. So how can ProAV solutions be made that are super accessible, super inclusive for all of those users to be able to join with, as few barriers as possible?
Right. I'd say as really the emerging trend of AI and having hardware interfaced with AI, I think is really going to improve the experience for everybody within that. Because you're right. I mean, meeting equity is a significant thing, and everybody wants to be able to move from space to space and make certain that their meeting quality, that their audio quality is very good. So as I'm relating that to AI, though, the transcription services, you really need to have good audio for transcription services. And we have, the few solutions that we've been focused on over the last, you could say the last 12 months, being that, again, that ceiling array microphone, our AT&D 1061 Dan, and our new engineered sound wireless. The audio quality on them is quite good. And that does go back to, again, really listening to our customers and finding out, hey, what do you like? What do you need from your meeting space? And that has come up. Somebody saying that, hey, we are using transcription services. We need to make certain that the audio is as crystal clear as possible to make certain that our transcription is accurate. You definitely need that, because if not, you don't need any misspelled words,
Right.
to
Right.
go out and maybe say something that you did not intend to. And that's, a ceiling array can do that for you. Some of the potential limitations, though, is that a ceiling array is ultimately a distance microphone. Any ceiling array is going to be feet away from you.
Right.
Whereas that engineered sound wireless solution, you could have a gooseneck right next to you, and now you have a close mic. And either way, you could still achieve crystal audio quality with it, and less interaction, and then less of a barrier to that human-centric approach of AV.
And we've come a long way. I mean, if you think about it, like back when I worked at Vadio in the 2000s, it was like we had a camera tracking system, where you had to step on pads and a preset camera would move, or you had to wear a lanyard around your neck to have a camera, track you. And really, based on what Dan, just said about the ceiling arrays and the wireless mics, combined with some of the camera tracking technology now, like with Steer Vision and QSys, it's like we are bringing, the technology to the user, not the user to the technology, right? So they can just walk into a room, hypothetically, right? Walk into a room and they don't have to do anything, right? If it turns on, you can hear the people, the video automatically tracks you. It knows who's speaking. So we're getting there, and we've come a long, long way in the past decade. And it's going to be interesting to kind of see where we go from here.
If I can piggyback on that too, I mean, that really is the goal. You hit on the point, which is, in a way, we're almost supposed to take this for granted. We're supposed to be able to walk into a meeting space, press a button, and then have it work well. Right. If you go to any kind of event, it's the same thing. Right. I mean, I went to a basketball game last year, and now being an audio person, I'm going to be a little bit more critical at live events. But at the same time, you don't expect anybody to be able to interact with it that way. It's more or less we consume. And if we leave there either saying, yeah, that sounded really great, or nothing at all, then we did our job.
Right.
It's only when a problem arises where you kind of have to go in, rediscuss the potential issues with your end user, or with your consultant, or with your dealer, and then solve that problem. But yeah, I mean, you really hit on it, is to get in there and not have to interface with the technology as seamlessly as possible, with as little intervention as possible.
Well, it's wild. Like I was sitting in a presentation at Infocom, and QSys was talking about their new acquisition of Steer Vision, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was something along the lines of they produced an entire junior NBA tournament with 0 camera operators.
Wow.
like, which is insanity
Yeah.
to me. And people would probably lose their jobs, but whatever. Like, we still need camera operators, but the idea
Yes.
that something like that can be automated enough to track a sporting event is like wild to me.
Absolutely wild. I think that the like automatic framing of people in a conference room has been like one of the biggest like shifts in AV that I've seen since I joined this industry. Like I think that's
Yeah.
huge. We have some questions coming in from the audience, just kind of general about UCC and meeting equity. So someone named Garrett asked, how do you balance meeting equity when the people in the conference room don't want to be on camera other than a wide shot of the room? Just because he said some people hate being on camera. That's interesting. If the people joining in the conference room don't want to be on camera.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I don't know that I could speak to that too much, being, that I'm from an audio
Yeah.
manufacturer. But I certainly do. I'd say I certainly understand that. I think the easiest way to control that would be, in a way, how you control audio, and that's to control your environment.
Yeah.
So, many times you'll have a ceiling array in because you just want to control the environment. You want to some people want to remove a gooseneck because they don't want to be able to touch a button. And then other people do want that control.
Right.
So in a way, if you're working from home or if it's a BYOD thing, I mean, you can always do one of these and you could be off camera that way. But I get that. It's funny that in a way I was asked to do this because I don't like being on camera either. But
yeah, me either. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I have two. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say I have two kind of opinions on that. One, you don't like if you're in a conference room, you don't get a choice to not be there. You don't get a choice to like stand outside the room, right?
Yeah.
And just have your voice like come through the door or whatever. So it's
right.
Really, like, you have to be on camera, otherwise you don't see it. You don't see
or be one of the people joining from home so that you have the option to not turn on your camera, like
yeah.
I don't know. If you're coming to the conference room,
if you're in a conference room, you're right. I think, you're right. You're going to be on, right? Because they usually have a wide angle shot. I'm assuming that maybe what you could do, and maybe this is something you can accomplish with our mic, is we have camera groups for our mics. So you might be able to askew the camera towards one side and not have audio trigger the camera. I think that'd be one way. But going back to meeting equity, you can take your computer, you can bring it to another room, and you can still participate in the meeting. And if you're using an Audio Technica mic in either sense, you're still going to sound good. So
yes, I mean, that just goes back to like the whole point. Like you can have a meeting and not everyone's on camera, but you can't have a meeting and not be able to hear everyone. Like that's not going to work.
Yeah, it's true. I've said this, if anybody is on this call that I know, one of my good friends works in Hollywood. And he was saying that if you're in a movie, if you're watching a movie and the picture's a little bit blurry, you could usually sit through it. It was so funny. Yeah. I saw a movie recently with my daughter, and it was a 3D movie. But she's my youngest, and she did not want to wear the 3D glasses. And but I mean, the audio quality was good, so she's able to sit through the movie. But if your picture in a way is crystal clear, but the audio is muffled, if it's bandpassed at all, it can fatigue you very, 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 very quickly. So I'd say that I totally empathize with that from I just don't, some people just don't like being on camera. But thankfully there is a solution where you could still participate in the meeting, but from another location and still have good audio throughout.
I will also say, like, I don't know about you guys, but I've been working remotely now for 5 years, I guess. And like, I feel like I stare at myself more than I ever have.
Oh, for sure.
So I just like I see
More
wrinkles.
than
I see wrinkles I didn't used to have. Well, maybe I didn't used to
Does
have
my
them, but
beard look
whatever. Like
good?
weird
my
things,
gosh.
which I don't like. So yeah, I think, you know, to an extent, maybe there's a body image issue too when it comes to, you know, being on video all the time and seeing yourself,
Mhm.
you know, on screen day after day after day, and I don't know. So I could see both sides.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So taking a step back, like what do we see as emerging trends in Pro AV that are going to kind of further enhance the end user experience in coming years? I know we talked about AI being a big one. Are there other ones that you think are greater up and coming that we should start to incorporate?
I have a question on this one, and I've been thinking about this because we got these questions a
Yeah.
couple days ago, and you know, we keep talking about enhancing kind of the end user experience, and I would love
Mhm.
to know, what does enhancing the end user experience mean? Like, what is enhancing? Is it making it easier for the end user? So if that's the case, like, you know, what does it
Yeah, I
exactly
think
mean?
all of the above because like no end users, no two end users are going to be the same, right? So
Right.
while some are non-technical and they're like, I just want it to be easy, like other ones are like, oh, I don't want it to be easy. I want it to be just smoother. I don't like, I want there to be more technology. I mean, I guess this is just kind of like a never-ending question.
Yeah,
Totally.
I think that you have some trends and right that are just continually growing, and then the emerging trends part, right? So AI would definitely, I would say that that's an emerging trend, and I also think that this is relative because I talk to everybody, and again, taking it back to to plug Samantha Potter, I have everybody from the person who is a seasoned veteran, and
Mhm.
sometimes those seasoned veterans know, a wealth, and they're just on it. And sometimes they're seasoned veterans, but their mind is very analog centric, and that's not bad either. I mean, we can work with that. So I'll plug the 1061 again. That's why we added an analog connection on it too, to give those who are a little bit more familiar with the analog side, they can go that route. But I think that the emerging trend is something that's been on for a while, and that's everything's going on the network, and things are becoming more software based.
Mhm.
And that I think that's not necessarily a barrier for end users. But I do think it could be a barrier for integrators, and for that reason, and especially if I can throw this in there too, during the pandemic, a lot of the live performance workers needed to find work, and they made their way over into AV integration.
Right.
So in the human centric approach, we need to be able to listen to them too and find out what they're using, what they want to use, but also try to provide some education, as much education as we're able to, on these emerging trends, to get them up to speed and make certain that they are ultimately successful.
Yeah, and I think, you know, obviously AI, like Dan mentioned and we've talked about, is huge, and just
Mhm.
automating everything, you know, having the technology work seamlessly together. So again, that the technology is kind of hidden, but you still have the ability to use
Yeah.
it. I also think, you know, and you guys have probably talked about this, but taking it on the video side a little bit, like digital signage is everywhere. Like marketing with displays, you know,
Literally.
people wayfinding, people using it to get around. You know, there's seem to be less hospitality people, you know, more technology guiding us in every aspect of our lives. So I think, you know, I think on the video side, that's becoming more entrenched in our daily lives.
Yeah. No, fair. We got actually a couple of audience questions in, so I'm gonna
Hey.
ask those now. I know I'm always excited when the audience participates.
Right.
So
And then I get
Carol
nervous.
actually asked about the 1061. She asked if the 1061 beamforming mic has been used in large classroom spaces by utilizing more than one array successfully.
Oh yeah. I work on, as you can imagine, I work on these designs day in and day out, where we're using multiple microphones in any given space. And what I typically do is, again, I'll try to figure out what are you ultimately trying to accomplish? What are your application needs? And try to listen and see if I can balance the technology and the product with your expectations. I try to match those up. But yeah, for that, and this is where I think we do achieve a really good balance between flexibility and simplicity, where, what I'll do is I'll design something out and I almost turn it loose to the end user as a template. So, hey, this is your base. This is how we can accomplish your classroom needs. And then, we can kind of continue that conversation and make certain that you have continually what you need. But then again, we also work with the integrators on that one more specifically because that is going to be more so their point of contact is their integrator. And to keep with that theme of the human-centric approach, I think that's another area where, the end user and the integrator, just like the manufacturer and the integrator and the end user to some degree, really do need to maintain a good relationship and, and ask questions to find out even what are we going to do to develop future product. And we've, from the Audio-Technica standpoint, we've really, really tried to, and we're going to continue to do this, to have that human-centered approach when developing new products, that you actually have a solution that you need and not one that's just a, hey, this is the latest and greatest in technology. I mean, that stuff's all set. That's all good. Right. But unless it does what you want it to do or does what you need it to do, then it's all for naught.
Right.
So that answers your question.
I think it does. And classrooms are kind of like one big meeting room anyway. At least that's how I think of it. Sorry, Kelly, what were you saying?
Complicated.
No, I was just going to say, I was just talking to some of my colleagues this week, and I'm pretty sure that we installed or worked with an integrator to install a couple at UC Berkeley. So.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was like reading through. We're getting a lot of audience questions in all of a sudden. Cedric asked, can anyone speak to any integration conflicts between a client's aesthetic requirements and AV components functionality?
Ooh, that's a good one. It is almost always, that's a great question. It is almost always a battle between the aesthetic and the functionality. You might have a product that in a way functionally is perfect for a project, but unless it passes the eye test, and we do this, I think, naturally as humans, and you might not want it. We do it with food. You typically eat with your eyes first, right? But the ceiling array, I think, is a really good example of that. It has a smaller form factor. So I'd say it passes the eye test, definitely. But kind of going back to the whole video audio thing, I think it's good that it passes the eye test. And I think that could be, it decreases a barrier to entry. But then once it's in, it's got to sound good. So I love, working with integrators and end users. I love working with my customers to help optimize systems. Our entire applications engineering team does this. Our sales team does this. If we're going to sell you something, we want it to be we have the quality control through the entire process, where we really try to get you what you need based on your application needs. So then that way there's a, good vibes all the way through.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And a lot of the ceiling arrays are paintable now. So they literally look like whatever color the walls or the ceiling are, because you can paint them to match. Yep. So, I mean, they're beautiful because you don't see them.
I'll say this though, if you're going to paint ours, let me know. Give me a call first.
Yeah, call Dan.
I'll make sure it gets painted properly.
don't just, I said that, but I didn't mean like willy-nilly.
No, I just think I'd throw it out there. It's good to be clear, right?
Yeah. Don't get out the can of spray paint just yet.
Yeah, don't do that with anything.
Yeah. So winding down here, I know we're just about out of time. So last question for the both of you is, where can people connect with you? And if you just had any closing remarks. Dan, do you want to go ahead and go first?
So if you'd like to connect with me or my team, the best way to do it is over email. My email or our team email is aeteam@atus.com. And being solution centric and being that our ethic really is as applications engineers to really listen to our customers and to try to find out what you need based on those application needs. Our team would be happy to help you out and put together a solution that you put together the solution that you need and that you want, so that it ultimately meets your application needs. So yeah, get at me and we'll do what we can for you.
Perfect. Kelly, what about you?
I'm Kelly Perkins. You can find me at thefarmav.com or on LinkedIn at Kelly P. Perkins. And I'll just echo kind of what Dan said. If you have any questions about the Audio-Technica products or commercial line, give us a holler at the farm. We work with them all the time. And they're just great products, and they've put a lot of R&D into them as of late. And so check them out and give either one of us a call.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to thank both of you so much. This was a blast getting to talk to you guys for the past 30 minutes. And thanks again to Audio-Technica for making